If I asked you what your favourite flower was, what would you say? And in return, if you asked me what the flower I disliked most in the garden, what would I say? Well, my answer is going to be pansies. I don't like the size of them. I don't like the fact they are multicoloured, but I do like those little faces. So I've hit on a great compromise. Today, I'm going to be planting violas. They have all the beauty of those little faces, and I've chosen a tray that doesn't have those gaudy colours. Hello and welcome to my garden, and if you're a novice gardener like me, or perhaps a gardener with more expertise under your belt, I'd love it if you were to consider subscribing to my channel. All you need to do is find that red button marked subscribed, and that means that next time you open the YouTube app on your phone, your laptop or your computer, one of my videos will pop up for you to enjoy. So it's the middle of October. What is going on in your garden? Quite obviously, I've got a little job to do, but I'm not going to plant my violas out as bedding plants. I'm going to create a Viola Theatre using the stepler I showed you in my last video. And here it is, a ladder which I got for free, which I had plans of putting bedding plants in beautiful baskets on it, but I never got round to it. But I've been having a little bit of a clear out, and I thought, what's the point of having a ladder in storage when I could use it to create my own auricular theatre, but using my violas. So I'm going to collect up those little terracotta pots, grab myself some potting compost, and then get on with the job of potting up this tray that cost me £2. I don't know about you, but I live in a small market town, so most of my day-to-day jobs, I leave home and I leave my car at home and I walk the 12 minutes into town. So I usually do a quick trawl of charity shops and then always browse the street market when it's on. And for us, we have a market 3 times a week, on a Tuesday, Friday and Saturday, and the plant stall is there on each of those days. And if you love cut flowers as well, check out the market on a Saturday, because that's when the cut flower stall is there. But before I get on with my planting, I do want to pick some of my dahlias, which are just putting on so much fabulous growth at the moment. I couldn't be happier with the way that these dahlias are performing. So I cut some of the white last week, so more white is ready to be cut, and then the lovely deep pink, and perhaps not quite my favourite scarlet, were also ready to cut too. So here we go. I'm going to cut long again, and I'm just thinking if I cut this one long, there's going to be nothing left. So can I cut midway and perhaps get myself the longest stem as possible, but I'm still leaving myself another bud on the plant. So 2 of the white, 1, 2, 3 and 4 of the pink, and I think I will cut the 2 scarlet ones too. So I am totally denuding my plant, but I keep reminding myself I am not a gardener. I'm not growing these to have a beautiful show in my garden. I'm growing them for my vase. Don't you know, I'm a flower farmer. So I'm going to get my dahlias into water as soon as I possibly can. So I've got a jug of water on my patio table, and then when I've let them have a good old drink and I've got a bit more time, I can get on with the arranging. So I take off any of the leaves that are going to be inside the jug. I don't want them rotting off and shortening the life of my flowers. Cut the plonk at its best. It just means if I don't actually get around to arranging my flowers, I've got something that looks rather pretty in the meantime. And then I'll take this lot to the compost heap. And don't worry about my dahlias. I may well have cropped my plants to within an inch of their flowering life, but just look how many buds I've got left. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There must be at least 15 buds there for me to cut another time. Now what's happened here? There's been a few changes in the garden. One of my friends offered me some of her acanthus or bear's breeches. She was dividing it in her garden. I would have filmed me planting it out, but it was a case of getting the stems into the ground as soon as possible. If you can imagine sticks of rhubarb, this is exactly what they looked like. So the leaves, which are normally lush and turgid, quite rigid, have gone all floppy. And inside it's not so much as the roots, but it's almost like the ends of a spring onion. They go from the white to the green, so I do not know whether these are going to perk up and survive. But I've attempted to plant them in a clump. It was just too much to think about planting them individually. And as I was walking into town today, I did notice one of my neighbours down the road had a lovely, healthy looking version of this plant. So I'm hoping it's going to perk up, and then this time next year I'll have tall spikes of that purple and white flower. And in fact we have got acanthus, or the bear's breeches, in my husband's side of the garden. There's just 2 flower spikes there. And I think that's all we got this year. And he has got his in an old coal scuttle. So that's what he tends to do. He likes to have a lot of ground cover and then put specimen plants in pots and move them around as they mature. And you might recognise the acanthus. It's quite often used in detail in carvings at stately homes. I think it's the sign of welcome. Or perhaps that's the pineapple. And I've planted some skimmia too. I absolutely love this as a flower arranging foliage, and with Christmas on the horizon, I'm thinking of nothing else. I've got myself a plant that I can cut from straight away, and if it doesn't mature, well, it doesn't mature, but it's a much more cost-effective way of buying in Christmas foliage than going to the florist shop. So this plant cost me £6. Having a little bit of a debate with my husband at the moment whether I've planted it in the right growing conditions, the right location in the garden. I think it's going to be fine, and I think actually it's going to make a great combination, a planting combination, with the greenery, the shrubs that he's planted to start to mask our neighbour's fence. So I don't mind the fact it's going to grow. I want it to grow so I can crop from it. And I don't mind the fact that it's sticking quite a long way out into the bed, because I want my garden to have some structure year round. I'm pleased to see that my lavender seems to be surviving. And then there's lovely scabious. Do you think I'll get a second flush of colour? Or do you think the autumn frosts will nip off that new growth? We'll have to wait and see. And those mystery seedlings at the base of the rose next to my bay tree, I have definitely got to remember to look on a plant identification app to work out what they are. So what do you reckon? Are they forget-me-nots? Or perhaps they're honesty? The reason why I say honesty was that we had one rogue stem in one of the pots that I first placed on my side of the garden, and you can see here the seeds inside the seed pod. These make beautiful dried stems, but as you can see, the weather's got to mine and those seeds have been released. And as I'm showing you around, I'm noticing that my Physostegia has got some new blooms. It's been a while since I've said that plant name. And a little bit of colour coming back on the Coreolopsis. Again, these names aren't quite rolling off the tip of my tongue at the moment. I quite like this combination, the hot pink with the bright orange. So I seem to only ever get one zinnia in flower at a time. There, in focus now. Doesn't it look so exotic? One of the jobs I did last weekend was to set up some shelving racks underneath the kitchen windowsill. As ever, I have been having a clear out, a declutter and a reorganise. And I thought I could repurpose this shelving system from IKEA to create a workbench, somewhere to store our watering cans and plant pots. And also I've got a vision that I could plant long, deep tubs here, create a window box to enjoy from the kitchen window. And I can see here my husband's already putting it to good use. He has got something growing in here. I wonder what they are. He has put labels on them. Oh, it's the wrong way around. Something ×3. To me it looks like a begonia from the leaf, but I'm not entirely sure. And then he's built a little bit of a plastic greenhouse around it using a bag, a clear plastic bag. So I've got my pots from my stepladder and I have got some compost. I'm going to put on my gardening gloves. I don't want to spoil my nails. And some potting compost, which is, I've just grabbed what came to hand, peat-free multi-purpose compost. So I'm not allowed to plant up this tub because my husband said he uses it for potting on. But I think I will try and find out where he got it from. So I could perhaps buy 2 or 3 of these to create a window box underneath the kitchen window. So I'm going to empty some out and then have a look at what I've got. So I've got 6 compartments here. So squeezing them out. So from the 6 compartments I have got one rather full viola, which is great. So I'm going to put a little bit of compost in the bottom. Do I need drainage though? What do you think? Wow, rather handily down here, because I've reorganised things. I've also got a bag of gravel. So I will put a handful of gravel in the bottom of the pot, hoping it doesn't fall through that hole, and then add in a little bit of compost. Just going to loosen it up a little bit. It was clumps of compost there, and then into the top, and that was a square planting plug, so I'm going to just add in some compost around the edges and then give it a water, and then that can go back on to my Viola Theatre, aka the repurposed stepladder. A little bit of gravel, tiny bit of soil, pop out a plant. This one's going to be quite a tight squeeze. Push it down and admire. A little bit of a production line going here. And at some point I've drawn cobwebs on this, so quite clearly left over from a flower arranging class with some local primary school children. And look, this plant has got no flowers on it. So that's my potting up done. Aren't the little faces just lovely? I specifically chose my violas in a single colour, a nice sophisticated white, which I think is going to look great in these terracotta pots. against the pale green of my stepladder without looking too garish. Let me know in the comments whether you are a pansy fan or whether you prefer the more delicate violas. And all I need to do now is to arrange them to the best artistic effect. There's a slight breeze working up today, so I'll have to see whether they actually stay in place or whether they are going to fall over. And I guess if they do fall off the shelf, I'll just need to put them somewhere that's slightly more sheltered, or perhaps put them on my patio table, or even bring them indoors and have them on my kitchen windowsill. And then water in. I'm rather pleased with the way that's turned out. Making use of terracotta pots, some of them, a couple of them are quite old I think, but the rest are definitely left over from flower arranging classes. And it's also meant I could put that ladder to good use. Everything's slightly, and then everything looks slightly more purposeful. So what do you reckon? How many marks out of 10 are you going to award me for my Viola Theatre? Flower arranging needn't be difficult. You could just cut and plonk in the first watertight vessel you come across. But with the autumn season arriving, and I've been collecting conkers, and have you seen the video I posted earlier this week on how to make a conker? If not, I'll leave a link to it in the notes underneath the video. And I've taken the opportunity with Halloween just around the corner to look out some of my Halloween displays. I don't really like decorating my house with lots of orange plastic pumpkins, so I've been thrifting for containers over the years. I've got this sort of brown poison bottle. I think that's quite modern, but this is certainly old. It says bottled by Jay's, so does that make it Jay's cleaning fluid? It's got a cork in the bottom, and then from the vintage fair that takes place on the first Sunday of the month in town, I've got this tankard from Royal Dorton. I like to think that that's Guy Fawkes' bonfire night at the front. And on the other side, a plainer black and white drawing. It's got a chip on it, and that's the reason why it only cost me £1. And then for 50p, I bought this amber glass goblet at one of the vintage shops down in town. And from a cut and plonk into my glass jug, I'm going to reuse that water and top up into these containers, and then do a more artistic cut and plonk, almost like creating a series of bud vases which I'll group together in my living room. Just make sure that when you do add your flowers to your vases, the stems are actually reaching right down into the water. You'll either need to push them further down or add more water. And I think with my white mug here, I'm going to add my white dahlias, cutting off any leaves that just look slightly dishevelled. I'm cutting off a little bit of the length there too, just so it doesn't look too top heavy. A little bit of autumn white, and then the brighter jewelled colours of autumn. Now I think probably the mouth of this goblet is going to be a little bit too open. My flowers aren't going to hold steady, so what I might do is to drop a metal pin holder inside, and then I can impale my flower stems on that, and they will stay exactly where I want them. And I know I've got one on my kitchen windowsill. And here it is. It's a heavy metal base with spikes on it, so it should be sufficiently heavy enough it will stay steady in my container without needing to be fixed there. And actually, that gives another dimension to the glass. So if you are using a pin holder, instead of cutting your flower stems at a diagonal point so they stand up on tiptoes in your vase, you will need to cut them straight across, and that just makes it easier to impale your stem ends onto those metal prongs. Sometimes I impale them on the prong and sometimes between a pair of them. And you don't have to always put your stem upright. You can push this flower on upright and then just angle it down a little bit so it sits where you want it to be. And there we have my seasonal collection of dahlias styled up for Halloween. I'm imagining this is my bottle of poison. And then the ghoulish sharp teeth of my pin holder nestled in the bottom of my goblet. Another brown bottle. And then the whites in my Guy Fawkes tankard. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. And if you want some more flower arranging hints and tips, or you want to show off what you've been doing in your garden or finding at the charity shops, you really ought to head over to my free Facebook group, Flowers Start World. I'll leave a link to that in the notes underneath the video. And if flower arranging is your passion, how about joining my YouTube membership group, where you get free access to a monthly flower arranging club. That's all for me for now, and I'll see you in the garden next time.